I call to order the meeting of the June 6th Portsmouth Community Network Broadband Authority. And Madam Secretary, if you will call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Ugal?
Present.
Mr. Moody is absent. Mr. Tillage?
Here.
Dr. Lucas is absent. Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Here. Okay, we are accounted for, and can't take a look. We can look at our minutes, but we won't be able to approve them until we get a fourth person here for a quorum. So with that, we'll move down to our discussion, and first up is our Portsmouth Community Local Fiber Ring, and we'll have Mr. Cliff Hayes, Director.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Manager, members of the authority, Madam Clerk. We definitely, Madam City Attorney as well, have for you an update regarding our Portsmouth Community Network Broadband fiber network here in the city.
Are you ready to start?
Yes.
Bless us all.
Better give our CIO a hand with technology.
It's okay. We'll get it straight. Okay.
We were all thinking that, but we didn't.
We didn't. You're right. We didn't.
That screen looks just like our first slide then. All right, so basically, we wanted to kind of take a look back on our guiding principles and focus on why we had the network from the start, and some of those guiding principles continue to be our focus even to today. The idea, first off, is that we will have faster, more reliable internet service for not only our government buildings, but also our community anchor institutions, and certainly greater capacity was the goal as well. Next, cost avoidance and return on investment. Of course, wherever we could, we wanted to realize any savings for the city, and as we go through the presentation, we'll show you some of those as well. Regional cooperation was another goal. We are a 1/5 partner in a regional ring in addition to the local ring that we have, and we wanted to participate and assist wherever we could, providing that support for the regional ring as well. You might note under a different organization, you're already aware, but as a part of this particular body, I wanted to make mention that recently there's been an agreement between the Regional Network Authority and we have, as a city, allowed some of our excess capacity to be utilized by the Southside Network Authority, and in return, an in-kind of $1.3 million is what they have submitted, and our city council accepted last month. Also, digital adoption and closing the digital divide was another guiding principle and initiative that the city at that time, and continues to be a thrust for the city even till today. Then, of course, there was to spur interest and investment from additional internet service providers in the region, or that would come to the region and to the city, providing internet service to not only offering it to us as a government entity, but also our local residents here in the city. And then, of course, with the City of Portsmouth's Economic Development Department, the local ring would be able to be used as leverage to help spur economic interest and investment here in the city, and that continues to be an important initiative coming from our Economic Development Department. There were two items that we needed to do to complete the redundancy of our local ring. Obviously, as mentioned before, we do have many segments of our ring already built out across the city. But it's important that we also provide redundancy in that ring, and there remains two small segments that we continue to work on to try to close so that we can close that loop. One of which was the Portsmouth-Suffolk area along College Drive. There's an agreement between the city of Portsmouth and the city of Suffolk that recently was signed as of the 5th of June, just this past week. They finally got their signatures completed. And so that gives us the green light to apply for permits there in the city of Suffolk so that we can finish that little segment. As I understand it, also some requests or permits to the railroad as well. And then that second part is the High Street Bridge. Of course, the bridge is complete, but the contractor that has pulled the built the conduit across has not finished their segment. We have the fiber construction contractor standing ready. They're ready to pull that fiber, but the conduit contractor hasn't finished a small segment. Once that is completed, we'll pull that across. Both of these remaining portions, it looks like the estimate for the completion of the College Drive portion is estimated to be around August, as well as the completion of the High Street, pulling that fiber across and completing that is late July to August as well. I wanted to emphasize or help you all make you aware also with the focus being on our government entities being able to capitalize on faster, more reliable internet connection and broadband connectivity. What our plans are, not only for our individual departments, but starting with our information technology department. And in that strategy, the next steps for us is to actually go from the existing up to 1 gig circuit for our internet to actually a 10 gig circuit connection from our data center here to a data center down in Virginia Beach Global Links. And that transport will be transferred to the regional connection ring when that particular segment is live and is reliable as well. The idea also with the global links and a regional connection ring connection is that we will be able to receive this faster internet service, and we will tie our local ring to that connection and literally be able to build out to our 217 community anchor institutions here in the city. Now, the idea also is for any other locations that are not already connected via our fiber, we're going to include in our application for BEAD funding with the regional application that goes in. This is just a graphic that's to kind of demonstrate how we will take from our location here to the data center in Virginia Beach, a 10 gig connection. Right now, with that 10 gig internet bandwidth, we're looking at the cost for us currently today is somewhere close to $5,000 a month. Will go to $550. So you can see the savings and the cost avoidance there as one of your guiding principles from the beginning. Also, we will start out with that transport and the two-layer transport being at $2,800, roughly $3,000 a month. But when the regional ring is up and running and reliable, we will avoid that cost as well, because we'll be able to utilize the regional connection ring and avoid or eliminate that cost that we have. This is just a graphic to show you in red. It's laying out for you what the local ring actually looks like today, where it is built around the city, so that you'll know where our fiber actually runs around the city. The green circles indicate the 217 community anchor institutions that we referred to earlier, and the green lines show you the additional build out that we will need to go to other institutions around the city that we plan to include in the BEAD application. The idea with this strategy is that those locations that are nearest or closest to our fiber ring, we will go ahead and build out, and then the longer distances that you see, the longer legs, are the ones that will be priority listed with our BEAD application. And then at this time, we'll call on Mr. Jeff Biku, who will go through our schedule, as well as the application for digital equity with the state. Jeff?
Good afternoon, everyone. So June to October 24, we're currently surveying and looking at all the anchor institutions to identify the cost that's going to be required for upgrading the facilities. So that requires a certain technology. It could be Active-E, it could be GPON. We're looking at what's required inside 700 to each facility, and the last mile fiber, let's call it the fiber that goes from the connection point on the NGN that runs into the facility. And we're also looking at the redundant paths that actually goes to critical facilities. So if something happens, at least you have redundancy to back it up. All that's going to be identified in a cost, and that cost is going to go into what we can get compensated by BEAD funding. We're trying to work it so that the BEAD funding and application goes in conjunction with the same time as when we start looking at activating some of these anchor institutions. The main circuit for 700, the 10 gig circuit, should be live by October 2024. Again, that's tentative. We'll see what happens. And the reason we have unknowns for the BEAD applications, because right now we've been working with DHCD consistently, and we're getting different numbers of what the state is doing or when they're going to have the application, portal ready, and when the process will begin. So right now we were saying fall 24 to early 2025. Sorry. By March 2025, we're looking at getting the data center transition from the main data center to global links. That'll be riding the transport of the 10 gig network that's Cliff was talking about. BEAD applications, best case, should be ready to go by April 2025. We're also looking in April to do a digital equity marketing plan, have that finalized, and begin applying for digital capacity projects. Our window is 18 months to 3 years maximum. We're hoping that actually becomes a lot less than 3 years, but again, hands are tied, not sure when the DHCD is going to open the portal up, when we're going to get the funding. We don't want to have to, pay for all of these projects without some kind of state and federal funding. So that's our plans. Next one, Cliff. The digital equity business marketing plan. So the city manager approved our draft. We applied for Matthews and City of Virginia Beach, and we were the only two applications that was received by the state. Feedback received from those two applications that we already submitted was very positive. There's a few edits that had to be done, And the timeline was reduced for the main capacity grant from 12 to 9 months. So once the approval for the 25,000 is done, which we expect to hear within the next couple of weeks, we will have 9 months to put together the actual application for the capacity grants, which does cover a lot of your 501c3s and other institutions that even digital equity, digital planning for educating the citizens, a lot of different things that will go into that grant application. So that we have 9 months to put that together. And then the other City of Portsmouth application, the one that we did for the city that's going in on Friday is similar to the other two we already submitted, so we don't see any issues. DHCD came back very positive, said, you know what, we're definitely going to get the grants. We just need to make a few edits, but that's it. Our Portsmouth application should go on Friday and be approved by the next couple of weeks. That's it.
Any questions, members? Dr. Whitaker?
Yes, thank you. So the page that shows the outline of the structure of the ring, I believe that's it's not numbered, but yeah. So as we look at this and a citizen looking at this, what do we tell them as far as how this will benefit the average household, cost-wise and service-wise?
Well, the idea, Madam Chair, Dr. Whitaker, is that this structure that you see here is primarily for the benefit of the
Inside.
city, the government itself, and our community anchor institutions. By us having not only this fiber run throughout the city, we have, in addition to this ring, excess fibers that are there also. Hopefully, that can be used as leverage with other ISPs, that they would be interested in providing some internet service in our neighborhoods at a fraction of the cost. Hopefully, the more, in addition to that, the more participants that you have and competition that you have, it was a driving factor initially and continues to be today, that the more competition hopefully will begin to drive down what the offerings are to our residents in the city. And so folks will begin to see some relief because the internet service that's being provided would be lowered overall by all of the competition.
Okay, yeah, because I know that was something that when we initially started discussing this, what would this ultimately be of benefit to the average resident here in Portsmouth? So if you're saying that the available space will possibly promote some competition and some possible cost reduction in services, is that something that we are planning that's going to happen or hoping is going to happen?
It's in a plan to be marketed it that way.
Okay.
Part of that marketing plan will be in conjunction with our marketing department here and talking to community organizations, et cetera, talking to through economic development that they will be sharing also with businesses these opportunities. And so hopefully through that will be the case. That's the future. But already, just the fact that we're lighting up certain areas of the network here and folks are hearing about not only Portsmouth Ring, but the regional ring. You have ISPs that are coming to the area that are knocking and asking what can they do to kind of take advantage of or try to leverage what's already in place. Some of them, have gone as far as to try to really ask us for some kind of agreement. Some are just in the talks about what it's going to take, and they're doing their research on their investment to actually get connected to us here in the city of Portsmouth.
And so they would ultimately be in competition with a Cox or Verizon?
They would be additional players in that ISP market, yes, sir.
It's actually happening in Virginia Beach significantly right now. So started off with Cox, right? And as the regional rinks started getting promoted and you had a lot more companies coming in. So now you have T-Mobile, which has stepped up quite a bit. Okay, you have Lumos coming in, getting permits. You got Metronet now coming in, getting permits. So they're all of that is driven to cost, the average cost that used to be, 30% higher than what it is now, driven it down because everybody's competing with each other. So it's serving its purpose.
Okay. Thank you.
I had one question on two slides before that. And Mr. Hayes, you mentioned that council voted on a $1.3 million investment right there beside the regional cooperation. I think it might be one more. Yes, right there. So the 1.5, you said that was in kind, or was that actual?
Well, the
cash?
regional body is calling it an in-kind. We provided an in-kind to them
Okay.
because, again, this is playing right into the original investment that the city made in
Right.
building out its ring. And now the cost that it took us to build across the Western Freeway,
Right.
well, now we had excess capacity in that conduit and have offered and agreed with the regional ring. They need that same pipe to get across because they want to connect through the Midtown Tunnel. So they need the Western Freeway for their regional ring to come on across. So they said, rather than for us to pay more than what it cost you all, rather than for us to wait on permits and all of this through VDOT, then we'll pay the city of Portsmouth your costs that you all paid to build that segment for yourself.
Okay.
And then it's a wash. You save that money. And so that's what's actually happening there. The agreement, they've agreed, they voted and agreed to do it. You agreed last month to accept it.
Accept it.
So now it's just a matter of actually receiving those funds in the city, $1.3 million.
Okay, but we haven't seen that yet. Not yet.
Checks in the mail.
It's in the mail. Okay. And then I guess just for clarity, the NGN, is that Next Generation Network or, okay.
Right.
All right. Just make sure. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Hugo.
If we could go to the schedule slide, please. So the schedule slide talks a lot about BEAD and BEAD applications. Do we have some guesstimate how much of the funding that it's going to take to do all this is going to come to us via BEAD, and how much the city's going to have to put up to make all that happen?
We will have estimates within the next couple of months because we're working on getting all those costs put together. But the plan is not to go 100% and look for BEAD. Right? We'll look at some of the closer facilities, the more critical facilities that will say, okay, this should be a Portsmouth cost. And then the ones that actually have a longer run, we'll utilize those, maybe 80-20%, right? And 80% will go towards BEAD, 20% will go towards Portsmouth. But that's a decision you guys are going to have to make once we put the costs together.
Okay. And it looks like we're going to need to start spending Portsmouth money to implement in fiscal 26 or in fiscal 25. And the reason I'm asking, I don't recall that there's a capital improvement program project that has anything to do with this investment in the FY25 capital improvement plan. And so either we missed something or we're not planning on needing it in 25 and we'll plug it into the plan in 26.
I'd say 26.
Okay.
Can I add something though?
Yes.
Forget, we're going to getting $1.3 million infusion of money that we had not originally budgeted for. So that will help move this project along.
Yeah, okay. And then just the slidesmanship thing. So you guys live in this world every day. we live in this world for 1 hour a month. So NGN, RCR, LCR, BTS, DHCD, those are all tumble off of your tongue. If you could spell those things out in here, it would be very helpful for those of us that speak this language once a month.
Yes, sir.
Cheat sheet.
We can go fiber to the home, FTTP, we can do EPON, GPON, we can do a lot more.
And then one last question to pile on to Councilman Whitaker's question. So when a new ISP comes in and expresses interest to leverage our network, we would lease to them access to the network so that they can push their service out to some, most, or all of the city, right?
So there's a process they're going to have to go through first, which is going to be permitting. They're going to have to identify how their permits work. They're going to have some kind of design. They're not going to use the whole full NGN. They're going to have to identify which ones they want, and they're going to have to, Portsmouth is going to have to come up with a cost of leasing that segment of fiber or conduit, whatever they're looking for. So they're going to have to also apply for a franchise agreement with the city. So there's a few steps of processes they're going to have to go through before they can even do anything that says that they can activate customers. They might overbuild their own fiber, which is more, which costs a little more, but their return on investment is a lot better for them in some cases, and just use segments of. We don't know. It depends on what they're looking to do.
Okay, and so if an ISP walked in the door tomorrow, are we ready to start those discussions with them with a process?
Absolutely.
For what we expect them to give us in the way of site plan or design or whatever? I know we've approved the lease costs already for the access to the ring, but knowing how we get feedback that our processes to get permits and whatnot can be sometimes challenging, being out in front of that with a solid process for somebody to get access. And then is that approval come to the authority, or is that approval to city council?
So that depends. So you'd have to get the franchise agreement that has to go through city council.
Okay.
Then if they wanted to lease the ring, city council has approved for short-term leases of realistically small segments of the ring, that the city manager has the authority to do that if it is for an entity that already has a franchise agreement. So an entity that has already been approved by council and they get their permits. But if they're looking at a longer-term lease or a lease for a large portion of the ring, those rates don't make a lot of sense, and that would be something that would need to go to city council. This authority right now doesn't have authority over any of Portsmouth's ring. So until that happened, it would need to go through city council.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Whitaker.
So I'm assuming we have assessed the rates that we would be offering, and those rates would be competitive with your Cox or Verizon, so that what we agreed as our lease is a competitive rate.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Jeff Biku on what the rate structure is, because he's the one who came up with that. But from my understanding, Cox and Verizon don't actually offer that type of service. I don't recall what.
Yeah, Cox doesn't offer it. Verizon doesn't offer it. They will never lease their fiber. The rates we use was relevant to what was developed by the city of Virginia Beach and other Norfolk as well, because they all lease some of their fiber. So we want to keep it uniform so that all the cities in the south side, there's no price gouging. They can look at other cities and say, okay, this is what the rate is. And that's how we came up with the rate.
Yeah, mine wasn't whether Cox or Verizon would lease theirs. I was just looking at it from it possibly being a barrier to entry for those ISPs that may want to enter the market. Is our rate really competitive? for that, or
Oh, it
does
is. Yeah.
just, okay.
It is. And you know, what Kelsey is saying is the more space they want on the ring, and the more it benefits the community. If they come in here and they say, okay, we're going to invest X amount and we want to use, 80 miles of your ring and X amount of fibers, of course, we make a decision, the rate's going to be a little less, but what it's going to do is going to, help the community, also help that provider come in and be competitive. So it's a case-by-case basis of what they're willing to offer, what their finances are, and everything else that goes with it.
Okay. Then my last question, we may have hit on this at a previous meeting, but the structure of the ring as it has services for the Portsmouth redevelopment and housing properties, is that included here?
Those, I would say, those are some of those, they're included in that 217 community anchor institutions. So yes, you would be able to include those properties as
So
well.
they will have services, they will be able to have services on those properties?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, we thank you for that presentation. And we'll move into our next segment, which is going to be is it the digital plan, equity plan?
Actually, Madam Chair, we incorporated everything in the
Oh,
presentation.
all into the
here.
presentation,
It's all in
okay.
the presentation.
Okay, great.
Madam
All right,
Chair,
yes, ma'am.
to adopt your minutes.
Absolutely,
We have
yes,
4 minutes.
going back in. So we're going to go back up to our agenda, to the adoption of minutes, and members, if you have not had an opportunity to look at them, they're attached here.
I move to adopt. Second.
All right, it's been moved and second, and Madam Secretary, you'll call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Barnes is absent. Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Mr. Moody is absent. Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Chair Lucas Burke?
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, so we have adopted our minutes, and next up on our agenda is the closed session. We don't have any closed session, Kelsey, okay? Thank you, Attorney Ranger. And next up is our new business, future topics. Is there any, Mr. Hill?
Madam Clerk, I just have to keep asking, have we had anybody apply
I have
to join the
one.
authority?
I have one, and they will be brought to you at your next city council meeting for consideration, along with some other appointments. But it's only one.
Yeah, so I'll make the pitch publicly. We decided some time ago that we wanted to populate the authority with IT stakeholders, IT expertise beyond the city council membership that we had. And so if you're out there watching or listening and you have interest either as a stakeholder or as a technical expert, we would be pleased if you go to the city website and apply to join the authority so we can consider you for my seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all, and we have a couple members that may be rotating off or reelected into a new position, so we do need to look at that. So also wanted to look at, I guess, the election of officers, because I've been chair. Is that an annual, or we're going to just
I would say
maintain
wait till
until
your January, once we have
full
completed
commission?
elections. It's no need to do it now for just 6 months.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, with that said, then our next meeting will be held on July 9th at 4 o'clock. We don't have any public speakers, do we?
No, ma'am, nobody
Okay.
pre-registered.
No public speakers. With that said, then our meeting, we stand adjourned.